Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are reading the Meno. This is the first philosophy stream on YouTube back in 2025. So we are going to do a quick recap of where we are in the text. We're about halfway through the Meno. We are reading the Meno because we are trying to discover the Logos, the understandable paradigm model for understanding itself. And that's what we are learning about from the text. So as we read the Meno, Socrates is teaching us about the dialectic and the Logos. The Logos being the language. It's a Greek word. We don't have an English equivalent for it. It means words, language. It means lots of things. You might even come across a definition of logos as the end to which all things move. I've seen that before. It's a lot of things. We have to discover what it is if we want to know how to understand. That's the point that Socrates is making. The book is about a guy named Meno who very much represents most people today, our education system today, our social system today, our way of thinking today, very much represents that, and probably us, because we grew up in this society as well. And he comes to Socrates, of course, the great wise man, and asks if virtue can be taught. Okay, so Socrates' response is, well, hang on a second, do you even know what virtue is before you start asking things about it, whether or not it can be taught? This is a interesting exchange because it's one that we see a lot of in other areas of people trying to learn, trying to grow, trying to participate in conversations with others and with themselves about truth. Because we live in an age where one of the prevailing beliefs of the time is there is no truth, everything is relative. Everything is relative to opinions. Everything is relative to perspective. What's true for you is just true for you, and what's true for me is true for me, and there's no right or wrong, there's no truth or falseness or whatever. Therefore, let the tyrants who enslave us continue to do so, because who's to say that tyranny and enslavement and exploitation and capitalism is all, and destruction of our species and the planet, who's to say that that's all wrong? That's the prevailing belief that we are taught. One of the reasons we taught that is because of that example. It allows fascists who are motivated by their pathologos to continue to do it with impunity, which is, of course, the goal of people who have not yet addressed their pathologos, which is their false beliefs about what's right to do. That's what we are reading in this channel. We are reading the Philosophical Midwifery book, which is how to also learn the dialectic, also learn the logos, but apply it to freeing ourselves from the false beliefs that motivate us, that govern us, that enslave our souls and cause us to act in negative ways. So it turns out at this point of history that the people who have the money and the power are not doing that yet. So a handy false belief that's taught to society to allow them to get away with it, which is of course what people want. They want to play out their pathologos and get away with it until they go through midwifery and realize that's what they are doing without them even knowing it. It's an unsuspected false belief. So to teach people that there is no truth, therefore don't get mad at me when I do something truthfully bad or objectively bad, because there is no objective. That's a really handy thing to teach a enslaved and ignorant population. So we have to get around that in order to even participate in basic level of meaningful conversation with ourselves, with our friends, with our loved ones. So often the conversation will go along the similar lines. Truth. There is no understanding, it's only opinions and beliefs. Because there is no truth. Or rather, truth is unknowable. Okay, this often comes up. Normally this comes up right at the point the person is at their limits. Their limits of development of understanding. This is their block. This is as far as they get to go until they address their block, which is why philosophical midwifery is essential to any human being who wants to grow, learn, and also become a better person. So when they hit their limit, they will say, you can't go this far. You can't go any further. Why? It's not possible. Truth is unknowable. God is unknowable. Self is unknowable. Nirvana is unknowable, says the Buddhist. The Tao is unknowable, says the Taoist. God is unknowable, says the regular religious people trying to start a religious group of some kind. Therefore, you have to believe me. Therefore, any opinion is fine. Allow a million different religious opinions and beliefs to run rampant and without reflecting on the consequences. So we might ask them, actually, before you make the claim of that truth is unknowable, wouldn't you need to know the thing itself first? For you to say truth is unknowable implies you know about truth, and that one of its qualities is it's unknowable. How do you know truth? It shows the irrationality and the self-contradictory nature of that statement. So this is a very common one we have to deal with. And Socrates makes the same statement to Meno, not about truth, but about the truth of something. So saying truth is unknowable is kind of the top, has the scope over everything else that people claim are unknowable, because what he's saying is the truth about virtue is this or that. So Socrates says, hey, you want to know if virtue is teachable? What's the thing itself? And he gives us a great analogy. If I don't know who Meno is, can I say he's rich? He's good looking? He's wise? In other words, can I talk about the adjectives about something without knowing the thing itself? Obviously you can't, so the conversation becomes, what is virtue then? Before we ask whether or not it can be taught to people. That doesn't go anywhere fast. It quickly goes nowhere. Because Meno doesn't know how to give a definition. Socrates has to teach him how to give a definition. What's interesting about a definition is it unifies into a name or a word, the definition, all of the parts, the functioning, the purpose, all of the aspects about the thing can be unified together into a definition, or a name or a word. So how do we do that well, so that we're not mistaken, so that we don't look at Nazi stuff is in the news again because Elon Musk, after Trump's inauguration, was doing Nazi salutes to the crowd. Elon Musk, at the time of the recording, has about $400 billion. He's the richest person, and he seems to have bought his way into the biggest military power in the world by giving lots and lots of money to Trump. And at the inauguration, he was doing Nazi salutes because he's a racist and a Nazi. He's a Nazi doing Nazi things. So Nazis are again in the news, but it's a good thing to point to the fact that we are not learning. We're not learning. We're not learning from our mistakes because we've yet to learn philosophical midwifery. Thankfully, we have this book, thanks to the author, this guy, Pierre Grimes, who passed away last year. Oh my goodness. So we can. But also, if you don't want to make the mistake of giving a definition like virtue to something that's not virtue, like Nazi stuff. So how do we come to a definition? Because when Meno was asked to define virtue, he just did that. He did what these people do who are in power. He did what most people on our planet currently would do. Point to things they happen to already like or agree with and say, that's virtue, that's goodness. That thing over there, being nice to your friends. Oh, that thing over there, torturing your enemies. That's what it means to be good. So if you've ever looked on YouTube or, I don't know, gone to a school or gone to any sort of group where there's someone claiming to be wise, teaching you about God. Maybe it's a Bible study group, maybe it's a regular school, maybe it's just a YouTube channel. It will be almost always this. People pointing to things they already like or agree with, which would be caused by their upbringing and their family that they grew up in, and saying, this is what it means to be good. This is what it means to be, at colleges, a philosopher. This, what Kant did, not what that guy did, not what Socrates did, forget about Socrates. Hegel, Nietzsche, yes, these things are things that I like and agree with already. This is what it means to be a good philosopher. Equally so, you might have noticed that no religious people have the same idea of religion because, of course, no one reads the book, no one knows how to learn, no one knows how to think, no one's learnt the dialectic yet. So all they do is they get opinions and beliefs from their pastor, priest, imam, rabbi, whoever they learnt this crap from. And they are themselves pointing to things in the book that they happen to like and agree with while ignoring the things they don't. So the stuff about, let's take the Bible, for example, the stuff about you go to hell if you eat shellfish, they ignore that. The stuff about you'll go to hell if you grow crops of different kinds next to each other. Of course, that's stupid. No one thinks that's true, even though it's in their Bible, which is supposedly true. They will ignore that, point to the things they do like, and say this is a universal truth. They are speaking about universal truths without knowing how to get to universal truths. They're pointing to their preferences, their beliefs and opinions, and saying this is what is good. This is what it means to be a good, insert noun. Believing my opinions and preferences is what it means to be a good Christian, says the pastor. A good soul, says any other religious person. To be a good philosopher, says the college professor. To be a good alpha male, says the YouTube podcast. It's all the same thing. It's all Meno. Meno represents our age. And us, because we are here. And we're here for a reason. It's important to point to, and it's not a blame game. It's not wrong to be wrong. It's not bad to be wrong, let's say. And this is where we are at the text. Socrates, where we are reading, about halfway through the text, is making the case, helping Meno to see for himself, using step-by-step reasoning and examples. He's using his slave, problematic already. He's using the slave boy who hasn't had a mathematical education, asking him questions about essentially Pythagoras, areas of squares, and the boy, without any mathematical training, recognizes and defines Pythagoras. Where did it come from? But in order to do that, he had to first realize that he was wrong. He had an idea about areas of squares that were wrong. Now, normally, for all those other groups that I mentioned in society, professors, priests, parents, podcast hosts, political party leaders, being wrong is the worst thing. They will do everything they can, including genocide and, well, yeah, everything leading up to and including that, to make sure they were never wrong. As Trump says famously, I was a perfect call, I was right about everything, I was never wrong, I never made a mistake, this kind of crap. Being wrong is a bad thing if there is no truth and everything is just made up, which is of course nonsense. No one really believes it. It's just something that we have in our thinking that causes us to be blocked. It's not true, but it gets in the way at important times. Then being caught being wrong, well, it doesn't do any good. Not only that, if people haven't learnt logos, haven't learnt the logos and the dialectic, how to engage in friendly, reasoned reflection, using the logos, using the language well, to learn about why we were mistaken, number one, so we're free from the mistake, and then reflect on what is the truth. Without that, what do you do when someone's wrong? Because that's learning. That maybe is virtue, because it's good, true, beneficial, and will always help everyone because it's true. It's a principle. So without the art of dialectic, what do you do when you caught someone doing something wrong? And usually the answer is you crush them. Why? Because the model that people are using for what it means to be good and virtuous requires the crushing of them when they were young and learnt this model. In other words, when we were young, we were following the logos. We were discovering, understanding, learning language, communication, how to have fun, how to connect, how to discover things. As we were learning, we got the path of logos. Somebody came in and crushed our development. Said, nope, this is your limit, here and no further. You mustn't do that. And we took the blame, preventing our learning to discover what true virtue is, what true learning is, what it would mean to be a true and good teacher. And instead, we replace it with the model of that person who crushed us. Violence. Not literal violence, doesn't always have to be violence, but some sort of intimidation, antagonization, blame, saying it's your fault and it's your innate bad nature. That's the reason why you made the mistake, and therefore you get to go to prison, or you get to be tortured by us. All this sort of sadistic stuff. What made somebody great wasn't actually understanding truth, benefit, teaching. What Socrates represents, what made someone great was their ability to get away with their ignorance, which includes violence, oppression, genocide, and so on. So, if that's the sort of person you're dealing with, then making a mistake could be terrible. If they only use that as an excuse to do the next step, that is torture you, abuse you. That's punishment. This mentality is behind our currently, unfortunately, but currently, our justice systems. You did a crime not because of this is inevitable within any capitalist system, because capitalism is making people poor. That's what extracting profits means. So you will be poor and you will have to do crimes to eat. Instead of addressing the causes, we're going to say it's your fault. You are a criminal, you are a bad person. You lack character. And the way of teaching you how to correct your mistake and how to have good character is to torture you in prison. Stupid, barbaric, savage, and only done because there's no evidence to support that ever works and only ever does more harm. Obviously, because all of this torture and trying to insist you are a bad person literally does the opposite to what actually helps. not physical attention, which your attention's going to go into your physical if you're being hurt physically or imprisoned physically, but to direct your attention to reason itself and principles and causes. Hi, welcome to the chat. Good to see you. So literally does the opposite. And we, as we progress along the logos, following the dialectic, we come to understand truths about the good, divine, noble, transcendent, understandable nature of ourself, all in direct opposition to what the judge, the policeman, the lawyer, the politician, the capitalist are all insisting. We are insisting and using all of our power over the physical world and power over other people to insist that yourself is not noble, divine, understandable, transcendent, and yet immediate. We are insisting it is bad and wrong and naughty, and therefore we get to abuse you. Why? Doesn't help you, but we get pleasure out of it because we have a sickness called a pathologos. So that insistence is literally the exact opposite of the truth and will literally block. To the extent that you believe it and it gets in the way, it will block what you are really here to do, what actual learning is. So by definition, these people are motivated by and creating further ignorance. So our job is to recognize that, speak up as best we can about it, but also do our best to create the conditions, the causes for the opposite, where we want to make a mistake and see it, because we're not going in that sadistic, ignorant, tyrannical pathologos direction. You made a mistake, oh, now I get to beat you up and feel like a big, strong man. That's the game. All our institutions play and all the human beings behind the institutions play it. Instead of that, rediscover something that Socrates was laying out for us that is more rational, that is more mature. Other people are realizing this, thankfully. The opposite. To recognize there is an unsuspected mistake in your thinking is actually a brilliant thing, because it allows you to fix it and not be so ignorant, not be so blind. To realize, I don't know, your skateboard shouldn't be stored under the couch because it's too long is a good thing to realize, because then you can stop kicking your toe on your skateboard as you pass the couch. You can actually stop hurting yourself. And if you can see it and acknowledge it, it allows you to actually learn the truth. That's what that's what Socrates is teaching Meno. Because his Meno's slave boy realized he didn't know about areas. He actually thought he did, but he was wrong. But he was quite happy to say, oh yeah, I was wrong. And having said I was wrong, he's allowed to learn the truth from Socrates. That's where we are in the text, and that's what we want to do. As readers of Socrates, we want to do our best to match him. So in our lives, in our conversations, with ourselves primarily, and with others, we want to be like Socrates. That is, establish the conditions and the character and the spirit, the space, for people to be happy to discover their mistakes, not to fight tooth and nail to never have made a mistake, because that's the excuse that the fascists use to crush you, which the soul in itself doesn't want. The opposite. Create a new way of being, or rediscover our true way of being, really, because we're getting rid of the blocks that support our ignorance so we can discover the truth. That is, we love to learn. It's good to learn. That's what we're hoping to do in this community too. So feel free to join the Discord and do your best to wonder and become curious about understanding yourself and others, discovering the mistakes that we make, supporting us, congratulating us for having discovered a mistake, because that's, well, first of all, it's an opportunity to learn, as we said, but also the nature of the mistake itself has clues as to the cause of the mistake. So it's gold. Mistakes are gold that you can mine to discover deeper insights about yourself and your false beliefs that you never even suspected you had. So that's where we are in the text. Socrates making the case that it's okay to be wrong. By the way, this is in sharp contrast with Meno's first definition of virtue, which was being nice to your friends and harming your enemies. They're only your enemies, balloons, if they've done something wrong, if they have a mistaken belief or something. So formally in this conversation, well, still currently, I suppose, if he hasn't changed his mind, Meno thinks that making a mistake is an excuse for inflicting tyranny and abuse. And that's what he thinks a virtue is. And again, very, very common, even today. So our question is, or one question is, why? Why is Socrates honing in on this? Well, as we said, it begins with Meno saying, is virtue teachable? This is opening line. Socrates saying, hang on, before you talk about the qualities, do you know the thing? Sure, yeah. Being nice to friends, harming your enemies. Oh, and by the way, virtue is different for women. They don't get any power or control. At best, they can, control the house. And of course, slaves should exist, and they have a different virtue. The virtue of a slave, I imagine, would be being obedient to your master. Very different from the virtue of an actual man. This kind of garbage, that's literally very common. Elon Musk salute. In fact, it's a premise behind that Elon Musk uses to justify the fact that he has all the money and we don't, and we have to suffer and die. He's better. There's a different virtue for him. The chosen one, the white race, the white South African race. Very clever he is, he claims. His virtue is ruling the world, going to Mars, selling people cars. Your virtue is to obey him. Unless, of course, you're not white, in which case your virtue is to, die. He is a Nazi. So, that's not a contentious thing. At the time of the recording, he literally did several Nazi salutes at Trump's inauguration. So, the whole, maybe he's not really a Nazi thing can just die now. We can just be honest, which is important because he has a problem that needs to be addressed. He also has $400 billion and the influence over the greatest military of all time. So, worth being honest about his false beliefs. Worth not simping for him and trying to make it so he was never wrong, because being wrong is a good thing if our heart and our mind is directed towards understanding, as Socrates is. So, Meno thinks he knows what it is, and he's way off base in a way that most people are even today. So how can he ask if it can be taught if if his definition is wrong? Socrates says, okay, by the way, you pointing to things you like isn't defining the thing. It's not a principle if you stay in the physical world. Physical things are not principles. Physical things are caused by principles, are maintained by principles, participate in principles, like physical things participate in gravity, but you never see gravity. Physical things participate in beauty. Have you ever seen beauty itself without it being an adjective? You can't. With your physical senses. In the symposium, Socrates says, by the way, if you could, it would be a disaster. You know how if you see a beauty as an adjective, like a beautiful woman, you might feel so in love with her that you become infatuated and write songs and maybe even marry her, right? Now imagine that, but beauty itself. The love and desire for union with that object of beauty would be so tremendous that you wouldn't be able to do anything. It would be a disaster. Because beauty itself as a noun or a principle actually exists, has its own selfhood in not the physical world of becoming, but the intelligible realm of being. That's where we look to for the principles. And we want to see if there is such a thing even more beautiful than anything that could ever be physically beautiful. Because it's beauty itself, we might want to have a bit of a look. And by the way, that's the goal. The goal of this entire conversation is to turn our attention from physical expressions of things, number one, and our personal opinions of physical things, so the physical things and our way of thinking, opinions, to non-physical things. We can call them principles. We can also, call them aspects of being. Because even though they're principles, they exist. They have to exist. They have a force over our physical world. Gravity, beauty, sameness exists. Everything is either same or different. Everything you see is the same. This pen is the same as this because they're both the same shape, or they're both pens. They're different because this has ink and this is for my drawing pad. Everything is same and different. In fact, all of the list of aspects of being is what we study in philosophy. Whole and part. Is everything we've seen a whole? Does it have parts? One and many. So these are called the self-logos terms, or the aspects of pure being. This word has been mistranslated as forms. Throw that word forms in the bin. It's garbage. It's garbage. It's just used to do that other thing we said. It's used by teachers to project their own personal opinions onto Plato's thoughts as a way of dismissing them when they want to. Forms, the word is eidos, which means to behold. So the aspects of being we can behold. That might seem complicated, but keep an open mind. The point is these principles, like what's the principle of virtue? What's the principle of beauty? Is as a principle, it's true for everyone, which is important, but also you can actually see them. Not through your physical senses, of course. That's the goal of the dialectic is to slowly move away from the physical world to start talking about ideas themselves. But if you are having a conversation with yourself or your friends using only ideas, self-logos ideas, and you're using the dialectical structure to organize your thinking, to organize your conversation, it opens the door for you to potentially separate from your senses and experience it directly. Experience the principle directly, which makes it the object of knowledge. We use the word nous because knowledge only applies to this. It's the only thing you can know. Because the cognitive function of knowing means to grasp it as a whole in its entirety, and you can't do that with the physical senses. That's easy to see. Like, I can touch this part of my hand physically with this part of my hand physically by doing this. So you could say it's touching itself, but this part isn't touching this part. By nature of being physical, each part can't connect with each other part, so you can't know it in its entirety. These problems don't apply to the intelligible realm. I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but I hope that's stimulating your curiosity more than scaring you away. Nevertheless, this is the point of the dialectic. This is the exercise of philosophy. We want to know the truth. We want to know what's the cause of this physical world. We want to know what happens when we die. We want to know where we were before we were born here. We want to know if there's something we should be doing while we're here. This is what it means to be rational. And by the way, while we are here, we want to do good. So what's goodness itself? Not as a physical thing that I like with my opinions, because everything is relative to opinions. No. What's actually the good thing to do that will actually benefit? That's what it means to be mature. So, Socrates says, Meno, can you give a definition of this thing you call virtue? He points to things and he says, I like that, especially because I'm rich. Dangerous. All right, try again, says Socrates, and he gives us a couple of examples of how to use the dialectic. The dialectic is how to arrange your thoughts, arrange your ideas, even arrange the things that you glean from your physical perceptions. By the way, if that's a beautiful cat and that's a beautiful person and that's a beautiful painting, what's the saying? How can we organize these list of things in a certain way using the dialectic that might open up our mind to be receptive to the insight of beauty itself, which would be the principle of all beauty. Meno cannot do that. Just like people in our world right now sometimes pay tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even more, for an education, but how many of them are able to do this? Organize their thoughts in a systematic, reasoned, good, fun way that can lead to them actually gaining definitions, giving definitions as well. I haven't met any. So, Meno, just like everyone else, can't do it. Even after Socrates gives him a couple of examples, he can't do it. He can't define anything, let alone virtue, which he maybe will even go to a war and murder people because I know what's virtue and I'm doing the right thing, so I get to do this. All of the politicians of our day, all of the capitalists and businessmen, this is what they think. I am so smart and great, and my definition of virtue is so great that I deserve to have slaves. I deserve to, what does Bezos do? Pollute the planet with my garbage so I can make a bit of money. Make all my delivery drivers wear diapers because I have so little empathy for these terrible people I'm exploiting, says Jeff Bezos. Why? Well, I am so certain that my idea about good is right that I get to harm people who disagree with me. All right, give a definition. It has to be a definition. It can't be examples of things you like, which can be easily traced back to your pathologos false beliefs from your childhood. Actually define it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Not gonna do it. Can't do it. Won't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. But this is also teaching us what we are learning when we learn. We genuinely have a genuine interest to spending our time learning, mastering the dialectic. What we get is a way of organizing our thoughts, but also giving definitions. And definitions are needed for understanding. We're learning how to understand. Also, Socrates is demonstrating, as he's defining the dialectic, he's demonstrating what it would be like to have a mastery of the dialectic. He can use it. His ability to actually give definitions, he's not using to crush Meno who can't. Meno would crush someone. He says harming enemies is good, having slaves is good, oppressing women is good. Whatever power he has that others don't have, he will use as leverage to meet his physical needs, but also gratify his pathologos ignorance, his false beliefs about self and the world that he's carrying, that makes him good. Right, our pathologos is what people are motivated by and are manipulated by. So any fascist leader, if they realize the pathologos of the population, let's say it's a very racist country against, I don't know, Eskimos, they will say, oh, Eskimos are bad, because they are trying to legitimize the racist beliefs of the people, because if they are, what? Eskimos are bad, that means because I'm not an Eskimo, I'm great. I didn't have to master the logos. I didn't have to learn the dialectic. I didn't even have to practice using the dialectic to get great like Socrates. I'm just great because of this racist person saying racist things. And the only way you can prove that this other race is not as good as you, or the people you are lying to get their votes or money, is using whatever power that you have that they don't. So if you have all the guns, very easy to call the Eskimos bad, because you shoot them if they disagree. If you have all the money, and so on and so on. It's no coincidence that the racist Americans have a system that specifically impoverishes Black Americans and immigrants. The system is designed to keep them out of any sort of power so they can be abused. Socrates doesn't use his skill of definition that Meno doesn't have. He doesn't use it to abuse Meno in the same way Meno would him. He's demonstrating what it means to have the art of the dialectic. How does he use it instead? Helps him. He's inviting Meno to participate as well. He's giving him lots of opportunities. Meno tries to shut down the conversation. His pathologos, his ignorance jumps up to shut the logos down time and time again. Socrates diverts it, makes fun of it, makes a joke about it, and then goes straight back to the logos, straight back to the dialectic, and invites him to try again. He's trying to share the dialectic with him. He's trying to show the importance of the dialectic. You don't understand anything. You don't even know how to understand anything. So let's learn it. Let's try it again. Care. Notice, people in the physical world, number one, not looking to principles and causes. Number two, governed by their personal opinions and beliefs, not understanding of those principles and causes. These sorts of people live in a world that is characterized by us versus them. Scarcity of resources. I win when you lose. I have all the money when everyone else is poor. That kind of thing. Because, hey, I can use money to meet my physical needs. There's no space for care. There's no space for benefit. There's no space for empathy. It's no coincidence that the least empathetic, the most sociopathic people rise to the top of capitalism, because capitalism is the principle of the physical world trying to use us versus them, competition, zero-sum game. If I win, you have to lose, as a system of living together with human beings, animals, and the planet. It's stupid, of course. There's no room for empathy. It's a big problem right now because, hey, the more people sick and dying, the more money medical insurance companies make. So people who are sick and not being cured are good in this system. That's the opposite. The opposite is people who are sick is bad for humans. So what? So in that way of thinking, that hasn't yet turned you to move from opinions to understanding, moved from physical things to principles and causes. There's no space for empathy and care. So as people make this journey, people create the space for empathy and care. It's necessary if we want to live in a, not just a rational world, but a caring world. And not just to be a rational person who can think clearly, who can reason clearly, who can communicate clearly, but a human being with care. If you want to be a rational person, you have to learn the dialectic. There's no two ways around it. If you want to be a caring person, same. Otherwise, there's no space. And that's what Socrates is demonstrating. Look at the care, even in the face of Meno's been insulting Socrates over and over again, calling him ugly, calling him a flathead, angry at him for making it so he can't give these big speeches about these things he knows nothing about anymore. I can't speak like I've been stung by a stingray, you nasty man. Now, that's not to say we don't have caring people in our world, but if you find the people who are most caring, look at them. Think about them. What do they tend to do? The most caring and compassionate and empathetic people I've seen on this platform are, and the people that I tune into, are people who reason about the things seen in the physical world or the opinions of the people doing those things in the physical world. They reflect and they reason while thinking about the causes for these events that are good or bad, but also the principles. It's no coincidence that these are the kindest, most beautiful people. At least that I've seen on the platform and in real life. So, very close to or discovering the principles behind the dialectic. If they ever become aware of it, and maybe they'll see this channel and go, oh, that's interesting. That's what I was doing. I was discovering the logos on my own and the dialectic on my own. That's neat. Wow, I'm a young philosopher. Let's read this Meno, the Balboa translation of the Meno, of course, because all the other translators are in that other box. The Meno box, the Elon box, the Nazi box, in that their own false beliefs are still blocking them from reading the text completely and will cause them to pick and choose translations that support their unsuspected false beliefs. That's one of the problems we've had to reawakening philosophy, but we have the Balboa translation. That's what we're reading now. You can find a free link below to the text, which has a much, much more accurate translation. And the few times where the translators, pathologos, do poke in a little bit, it's completely fine because he will usually put it in a different color to indicate it's a special word. And if it's a special word, those are the times when our pathologos counterattacks are going to come up, but the Greek's underneath it, so we can look it up for ourselves. Another way, it's the only real way of doing philosophy. You can have it on a bumper sticker. If you're not reading the Balboa, you're not reading Socrates. And that'll be a bumper sticker that no one will understand, because no one knows this yet. Hopefully soon. The more bumper stickers, the more chance we have to spread this important insight. So that's what Socrates is doing. Part of his demonstration is this dialectic you need, because you can't talk about things, and most people spend their day talking about things. Ministers of education talk about how can we make education better. Do they know what education is? No. People who build prisons and courtrooms, how can we implement justice? Do they know what justice is? No. So most people spend their day, let's go right to the core of it. We spend our day doing things that we think will be good for our lives and make us better. Do we know where we're going when we die? Do we know what we should be doing while we're here? So why are we spending our lives dealing with the specifics when we don't know the thing itself? Very, very important. So to know the thing itself, that's dialectic, number one. To understand, that's the dialectic. Not only can you not, you don't understand the thing itself. Virtue in this case. So whether Meno wants to teach virtue by invading and murdering his neighbors, teach virtue by setting up schools in the spirit of his school, like his teacher Gorgias. However he's teaching virtue, he doesn't know what virtue is. And of course he doesn't, because when Socrates encouraged him for the third or fourth time to use a dialectic, he said, I don't know this dialectic. I don't know how you think. I don't even know how to get to a definition. Yeah. Welcome to the club. Meno. So, to understand the thing itself, to become rational, so we're not running around in this world without knowing, hey, I want to help people. I want to do good in the world. Fantastic, you do? Yeah. So what's the good? Huh? Yeah, you want to help people, right? Yeah. By doing good. Of course, that's what help means. So what's the good? Huh? Having food is good, I guess. Freedom is good, but then some freedoms are not good. The freedom to kick people isn't good. Yeah, that's the point. How can you do good if you don't know what the good is? Therefore, our first responsibility as human beings is to learn the dialectic, because that's the process through which we can come to, number one, understand the good, but also because the dialectic moves us away from our physical perceptions, sight, sound, smell, touch, to different cognitive functions where we can imagine and rationally tie together ideas. That's all non-physical. The dialectic is a gateway to the non-physical realm where we can directly apprehend it, what we might call the spiritual experience. So by doing the dialectic, not only are we learning understanding, we're understanding spirituality. Spirituality doesn't have to be mystical and mysterious, because you know what happens when it's mystical and mysterious?
Flibbity-jibbity nonsense.
Flibbity-jibbity nonsense. The same thing that happens with the other group of people that we were talking about. Using vague statements like, everyone is entitled to their opinion, there's no truth, or I stand for family, I stand for what's right. There's no meaning in that, on purpose, so that person can squeeze in their own problems, squeeze in their own preferences, squeeze in their own pathologos and opinions. That's what happens when you make things vague. That's why spirituality is kept vague. The people in charge don't know shit. That's not fair. They may know some things, and they may have had some experiences, but the important thing is they don't know the model. Most. I don't know. Do I want to be polite and say most? Maybe there are some spiritual dialecticians. I met one. The same thing with psychology, without understanding midwifery. Psychology is vague. Some people are person-centered counselors, and some person are behaviorists, and some person people are Kantian, and blah, 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 blah. All vague. All nonsense. So, in order to escape, this isn't contentious. If you have a spiritual friend, do you know a spiritual friend who's like a militant vegetarian or vegan? They will insist you can't be spiritual while eating meat. Is that a principle? Who knows? There's no way of knowing, right? Economists, is it bad to live in a capitalist system that specifically works to further and further impoverish 99.9% of people so that 0.1% of people can have billions and billions of dollars that they can use to enact out their ignorance with impunity at the expense of the suffering and death of everyone else, including our species? Is that good? No, it's who knows. Capitalism and business, economics is so vague and mysterious. Ooh, so vague in supply and demand curves. Ooh, the Dow Jones index. Nice and vague, right? Justice system. Are people ever helped by punishing them? Are we solving the problems? Or are our prisons getting bigger? No, but you see, to be a lawyer, you need to spend 10 years. Very vague, very vague. It's kept vague on purpose to distract from the fact that they don't know the principles. They don't know the paradigm, and they can't communicate it. Socrates is so much wiser than Meno, but he's communicating to him. He doesn't say, oh, philosophy is so vague. Get out of here, kid. Time and time again, he's using it to encourage benefit. through understanding. Notice, the key thing is understanding. You can have this or that spiritual experience because, spiritual experience just means experiencing something through the spirit. Now again, spirit is vague, but if we have physical senses that can apprehend through physical organs, our physical eyeball, our physical eardrums, we also have another sense that doesn't work through our physical senses, allowing us to think and reason. There's also another sense or eye of the soul that can apprehend those principles directly. We could call that the spiritual experience because it's not experiencing anything physical, but spiritual. So the dialectic is a way of demystifying, and no need to fight Buddhists against Taoists because we know how much they like to fight each other. I don't think they do, but probably, I don't know. Whenever there's division over opinions that can never be proven because they're opinions and not principles, war and conflict will inevitably arise because opinions are physical things. Physical conflicts are solved through physical things like war. Ideas can be solved with reason. So if something isn't actually true, is just a physical opinion, physical-based opinion, then you'll try and stop conversation. So a Buddhist might say, silence the mind, or a Catholic priest might say, don't ask questions. God works in mysterious ways. Or they'll gatekeep. You cannot ask this question unless you've read 1,000,000 books on Kant and Hegel, unless you've got a degree in philosophy, unless you've got a degree in economics, unless you've studied law, can you challenge us? Bollocks. Bollocks to all that. These are all ways of stopping the conversation, blocking the logos. Pathologos functions to block the logos, to defend lies. Why? Because if they were true, they would be true always, in principle. And in order to have that kind of existence, they have to exist in the realm of being, which means they're understandable, which means you can understand it through the dialectic. So whenever anyone asks, why did God do this? Or why does Elon Musk get all this money? Or why are we just building a giant prison system? Never will you say, shut up. You will say, let's use the dialectic to together understand it, which will benefit everyone. So the dialectic is the paradigm for thinking and understanding and giving a definition of anything. Number 2, it's the model of spirituality, demystifying it, bringing it together so it's not divided into groups based on opinions, upbringings, and culture. It's no coincidence that Muslim babies have Muslim parents and Buddhist babies are probably born in the East. You're not going to get a lot of Buddhists born in America. It's no coincidence because opinions are based on your family, upbringing, your physical environment. Whereas principles that are eternally true for everyone. So that's the significance of the dialectic. It's the method for understanding. So it makes you intelligent. Number 2, it's the model for it's the model for understanding, but it's also the model for spiritual progress and spiritual experience. Now, the two together come together to promote intelligence. As Socrates points out, as we continue to read Socrates, the Balboa version of Socrates, he points out that because that experience, that spiritual experience, is pure intelligence, that's where you get intelligence from. So the closer you can participate in causes and principles, either A, through the dialectic, or B, having separated from your senses and you're in that mystical experience, that is what makes you intelligent. Now, of course, many people have had those sorts of experiences through different methods or meditations or chanting or yogas or drugs or dancing or even childbirth or extreme moments of stress, but they haven't become any smarter. In fact, some people have had that experience and said, oh, this proves my religious beliefs. I saw the face of Allah, or I saw the face of Mother Mary, or I saw the face of Joseph Smith. Therefore, whatever my religious beliefs were, I'm even more certain. They're made less intelligent. But if our experience, our direct apprehension or beholding, again, not forms, the word is eidos, to behold, our beholding of intelligence itself, along with the dialectic, is what makes us intelligent. Pure intelligence grasped with understanding. So those two things we've pointed out. Number one, it's how we define and understand. Number two, it allows us to define and understand and experience the spiritual world. It's the paradigm for all spirituality. So there's another thing off the books that can be used to manipulate people by blaming divisions. The same way people like Meno say, oh, there's good people and bad people. There are friends and enemies. You can use religion. These are the heathens. They don't believe in the right God. Can't do that anymore because there's no need for it. Because it's just understanding. Anyone can play. And your progress isn't marked by what family you were born into and therefore what indoctrination you got. It's marked by how far up the logos are you. And being low on the ladder is not something to be avoided, but something to discover so you can learn. So, the dialectic, understanding and definition, able to understand and apprehend the spiritual experience, the two coming together for intelligence. But also, Socrates is demonstrating how you can communicate both. He is communicating his understanding of how to understand. He is communicating his understanding and experience of principles that actually exist. They're not concepts, they have a divine essence called ousia. So in other words, the dialectic is needed to help people, to do good, to do benefit. So all these people who think a life worth living is helping people, you gotta have the dialectic. Otherwise, you're not really helping. You're being more like Meno. It's not a blame game. That's Meno talk. Now you're my enemy and I get to hurt you because that's fit. No. Socrates isn't blaming Meno. He's encouraging him to play over and over with charm and humor. He made jokes when he was insulted. Oh, you think I'm a stingray and a flat head? Oh, only if I'm... you're only making that comparison because you're so damn good looking. That's why you're talking about physical appearances. Because you want me to... you calling me a flat-headed stingray. Now I have to describe your appearance with a metaphor. It's going to be a beautiful metaphor because you're so goddamn good looking. So I'm not going to fall for it. I'm not going to go into physical... we're going to stay with the logos. Isn't that a charming way to dissolve that distraction and get back on course? So, intelligence, direct apprehension of being, but also to be able to use both to communicate. That's the significance of what we're doing. And that's what Socrates is laying out for Meno. And if you look at people that you look up to, like the couple of streamers that I appreciate on this platform, that's what they're doing. To the extent which they do that is what makes them great. So, in order to learn all of those things, intelligence, understanding, how to grasp spiritual essence of being, which is of course needed because that's also the good. If you want to do good, you better be able to understand and grasp it. So before you start helping others, focus on yourself. Helping is secondary. So you're here to know the self. And also communicate beneficially. We can wonder which part of those three things is virtue. Are they all virtue? How does it relate to an art? Does an art require this? Does it require an understandable paradigm that's communicatable, number one? Does it require an ideal that's eternal, number two? Does it require, number three, to be able to put the two together to benefit, not you, but the person you're talking to? Notice, opinion world, physical world, capitalists, physicalists, scientists, They're not interested in benefit. They're only interested in benefiting them because that's physical principles, physical world. There are only so many apples. I want to eat all the apples. That kind of crap. Until you realize, hang on a second, we can grow so many more apples so there's enough apples for everyone and we don't have to fight over apples so long as we all learn the logos and are able to participate, in reason and goodness. But in order to do those amazing things and wonder about whether or not that's art, we have to catch where we are right now, which means we have to recognize that we're wrong. So not just ignorance, but what we call philosophical ignorance, the good kind of ignorance, when you realize you don't know that thing that you want to learn. So there's two kinds of ignorance in this game. There's pathologos ignorance, where you are sure about the thing that you are completely wrong about. This is why we read this every second day. And then there's philosophical ignorance, which is necessary to begin. This is talked about in the symposium as well. To be able to see, recognize, and acknowledge that you're wrong about something so that you can find out why and learn the right thing. Now, this is what Meno is struggling with. So we are asking the question, why is Socrates focusing in on this point here right now? We're halfway through the text. He's showing these other things about the significance of dialectic because Meno can't understand anything, by the way. He can't define anything, by the way. And he has no idea about the world of intelligible principles, and he hasn't experienced the realm of being. And Socrates shakes his head and goes, oh my God, I can't believe you went to a school and they let you out before you've been initiated into this spiritual experience of pure being. What the heck was your education about? Where do you think those principles live? You haven't had a look? Oh, disaster. He's already said this. But now, when Meno is mad that he is stung, he said, look, I was able to give so many good speeches about virtue, and I still think they're good. I still think I'm the man. That's why I'm mad at you that I can't talk anymore. The line of questioning that we've been engaged in has led me to realize I don't know what I'm talking about. And I hate that. And I hate you. And if you leave Athens, people are probably going to beat you up. And you're ugly. And you're a flathead. Because I'm stung. That was the last thing Meno said. Socrates says, no, you don't get it. If I'm a stingray having stung you, I will accept that charge only if it means I stung you as a consequence of me already being even more stung than you could ever be already. You think being stung is a bad thing, and we talked about this today at the start of this podcast. If you ever caught making a mistake, now I get to punish you and take all your money and use you for slave labor or charge you fines and just extract all your wealth. That's our current system. Or satisfy my sick pathologos by inflicting suffering because I think that makes me better. Zero-sum game. By crushing someone, I am the best. It's a sickness that's very common. So, we talked about why he doesn't want to be wrong. But here he is saying, I'm stung, and Socrates is saying, no, that's the best thing. So we are wondering, this is called aporia. It's a special term that means stung, confused, all out at sea, puzzled, wondering beyond wondering. Not beyond wondering. High level of wondering. So we're wondering ourselves, how does wondering play into virtue? And Socrates is saying this is how it plays into learning. So he's showing Meno that his slave boy is wrong about something to do with mathematics, but he's okay with being wrong because as soon as he recognizes he's wrong, number one, I can teach him what's true. And number two, he's not going to walk around town giving speeches about math that are going to be wrong. He's going to do less harm to others. So he's going to be doing less harm to himself and others, as well as allowing him to do good to himself and others, so long as he realizes he's wrong about something and he's open to learning. Philosophical ignorance, compared to Meno's ignorance that I'm right about everything even though it's wrong. So he's making this point. The point is what? You want to be stung. It's good to be stung. And you need to be open and stung. Otherwise, you're not going to learn crap. I've taught you the dialectic several times and it's just not getting in. Maybe you've had conversations with people or friends at a party or just anyone like this. They seem to be saying that they're interested in learning and they want to have a good discussion, but at every key point, they throw some bullshit in. They'll start speaking louder, or they'll start making jokes, or they'll start getting angry. Because they never were interested in learning. They were interested in proving the bullshit they already thought to be right. They want to cosplay a knower instead of actually going through the process of reaching actual knowing. We talked about the dialectic. And then using that knowing to be a good person or a teacher or a guru, which also requires the dialectic. They want to pretend to be that by pretending their dumb opinions are right. This is why for a lot of people it can be very frustrating talking to religious people, like evangelists, people who are preaching out in the street or whatever. Because the thing that they are most proud of, the thing that they think makes them so wise and such a guru, is the stupidest thing that everyone else has outgrown. For most people, well, for a lot of people with internet access, the lies that they get told as a young child under religious faith meaning beliefs that are absurd because it has to be faith because it's wrong or it can't be proven. For instance, it's wrong that the world is 5,000 years old, but it's faith to believe it anyway. It can't be proven that Mary was a virgin, but you have to believe it anyway. These are the two aspects of faith, which is stupidity. But most people outgrow that. When they start to think for themselves and question authority and question the all-knowingness of their parents who are also cosplaying, we outgrow it. We start asking questions, we start talking with other people, we start engaging in dialectic to whatever level we're aware of it. So it's very frustrating to have somebody come in and the very thing that you would say makes you stupid or makes you a baby is the thing that they're holding up as the reason why they're smarter than you and don't have to listen to your arguments. And they don't want to engage in conversation. They want to tell you the truth like a preacher preaching at you rather than a dialectician who talks with you. And if you're religious, consider this your wake-up call. When you are preaching your beliefs, everyone else thinks you're stupid, thinks you're a baby. It's very irritating. Because it's not that we don't have the capacity to have faith, it's that we outgrew it. Yeah, I once believed in the Easter Bunny too, but then I outgrew it. Yeah, I once believed in these provably wrong beliefs, and I see how they function to enslave people and cause war and genocide. That's why I questioned it. You are using it as the degree to justify your personal opinions and cosplay the knower, unlike Socrates, who actually is it. Now, for them, that's their thing. For an academic, it'll be a degree. Look at my dumb opinions and agree with them. Well, what makes your opinions right? A degree. Some people use titles. Now, this is mythologized in the story of Achilles. The story of Achilles is the most powerful person who is the most convinced of his family's divine nature. My family's opinions and beliefs are the right ones. If you're a religious person, there will be religious beliefs. If you're a rich person like Elon Musk, it's capitalist beliefs. He thinks him and his family are special because of their beliefs. Everyone does. That's the mark of the pathologos. Now, in storytelling, it's called a family curse, and it's represented by Achilles because he's a character who is half divine. His family is part divine. So he actually has more reason to think he is chosen by the gods and protected by the gods. All he has to do is believe the same crap and have the same way of being, which causes him to be the worst person possible. But the story of Achilles in the Iliad shows that even the worst person can turn it around. So there's hope for all of us. So long as we're genuinely interested in understanding and challenging the baby brain nonsense we got when we were babies with a baby brain. So it's not blame. Of course it's baby brain. You had a baby brain when you got it. But that's where we all are. We're all human beings in the same game. So, this sort of thing you might recognize yourself with these people. You think they're interested in talking about something, but they're not. They just want you to applaud at how wise they are for having those dumb beliefs. And it's baby brain. And it's common. And if you are ever around places where you can see groups, you can see the people who talk in this way, and you can see that they look different and act different. And their ability to participate in intelligence is lower because that's what the dialectic is. That's what it points to. Those principles and causes allowing us to be intelligent. But also they're the worst kind of people. They're the least caring. Because they're unable to communicate what they think is right because it's not right, and they don't learn to communicate. It's faith. It's shut up and just believe it. So they are the least intelligent and the least caring. So if you value intelligence and care, then they're the worst people. And then the Dunning-Kruger effect comes in. They're also the most confident, which is the kind of ignorance we want to overcome. The worst kinds of people, not blame, but understanding why, are the most confident while being the least intelligent and least caring. That's Meno. That's what Meno represents. Today we call it the Dunning-Kruger effect. But what we are able to do through reading the Meno is understand the nature of the Dunning-Kruger effect, how it works, why it works, and what we need to do in response to it. Because we need to make sure we don't fall into that hole. We want to make sure we don't be Meno. But when we come across someone like Meno, how do we actually extend intelligence and care in a way that they probably never experienced before, and they might actively fight back against, the same way Meno is actively at every turn fighting back against Socrates? How do we do that? How do we be like Socrates, an actual Noah, an actual guru, an actual good person? That's why we're reading it. One of the things is whether or not they're genuinely open-minded, or if they're just pretending to be interested because they're looking for a gap where they can dump their religious bullshit on you, or dump their capitalist bullshit on you, or dump their fascist bullshit on you, dump whatever their opinions are, because they were never interested in removing their false opinions, gaining understanding, and using it as a stepping stone to reach even higher truth. They were never interested in that. They like the role in their family, they like the role in their little group, rich person's country club, or church, whatever church they go to. They like that. They don't want to give it up. They are lying to you about being stung. Therefore, it's not going into Meno's head. He's not learning anything. So here we are halfway through the text where Socrates is showing you how important for yourself and for your functioning towards others it is to be philosophically ignorant. Be excited at discovering something that you didn't know was wrong, and then be excited about learning the truth, as opposed to Meno, who isn't wants to shut down the conversation, gets mad at you, wants to beat you up because you've shown that they're wrong. They don't like that. They might not even be used to it because they grew up in a Catholic family and they're all Catholics, or they grew up in a country club family with all the rich people. Like Meno, grew up in a rich family, connected family. In fact, they might mistake you inviting them to reflection as what everyone else does. Trying to catch you wrong so they can crush you, so they can be number one and get your stuff and beat you up. Whether it's beat you up in prisons, like our justice system, beat you up in detention, like our education system, or beat you up physically, like people do. Don't say that about my religion. I'm going to genocide you. Don't say that about my mum. I'm going to beat you up. That kind of crap. So if that's what he's expecting Socrates is doing, yeah, he might be angry and suspicious. Socrates is going out of his way to explain and demonstrate and teach him the significance of being okay with being wrong in this setting with this sort of person. What sort of person? The dialectician. The one with the art of the dialectic. The intelligent and caring person. The person who's genuinely joined the human race. The art of the dialectician. So, when Meno said, "Oh, I'm so stung," was he? He uses the word aporia, which means curious and open, and I don't know, but I don't know what to say. I'm puzzled by this state of wonder. Is he really in a state of wonder? Because Socrates is going out of his way to show its importance. So, this is the start of 2025 philosophy. That's an introduction to where we are in the text. These are hopefully a bunch of questions have come to light for you, have sparked up for you. Take those questions, keep them, protect them, polish them up, write them down somewhere if you like, so you can carry them with you as you read. That's part of reasoning. That's part of reading. We are engaged. We look for questions. So, there's a summary of where we're at, where we're going, and let's jump in. Actually, this year, maybe I'm going to split up the parts. One part for introduction, one part for reading. I guess I'll do that. If you are watching, leave comments on YouTube, whether you prefer one longer video or two medium length videos, or you can add your thoughts in the Discord if you like. But yeah, whatever works, let me know. So I am going to say goodbye and see you very soon for part 2, where we're going to jump into, I think we're on page 22 of the Meno, and see where it takes us. Oh, by the way, if all of those things we mentioned were all about dialectic, understanding, defining, spirituality, communicating, helping, being good, being a guru, all those sorts of things, push that. How far does it go? What else is actually governed by the principle and the structure of the dialectic? And is reading, this new way of reading that we're learning how to do, can we look for the dialectic in there somewhere so that we know what's really happening and we can do it even better? We can read it even better by seeing how the dialectic is also reflected in reading. There's a question we can take with us as we jump into part 2 and continue reading. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've got this far, thank you so much. And I hope to see you in part 2. So let's jump into the reading. Okay. So with that introduction, let's jump back into the text, and we're about 22 pages in, about halfway. we have covered the math behind what he is showing the young dude. Pretty much, he thought... Actually, we've got it on the board. Let's review it. This guy, Meno, thought that if you have a square that's 2 feet... Oh no. My pen is doing that thing again that it did before. Okay. Let's see if I can fix it quickly. Don't have to reboot my whole computer. No. Okay, it looks like from now on I have to test my pen, because sometimes it makes dots and not lines. Can I fix it on the go? I think I can. And see if I can unplug it and plug it in again. Nope, not working. Okay, this happened a couple of days ago and it took me a long time to fix it. So I don't think I will be back today for part 2 of the Meno stream. I might be back a bit later on for my music stream, Jed Phoenix Music. You can check me out there. We're going to play some music and we can continue to talk about philosophy. That will be in a few hours time. But this one has to stop now because look, I can't make lines, I can make dots. See? I don't know why that happens, but sometimes it happens and I have to restart my whole computer. See? Garbage. Well, if you stuck around on the stream, thanks for sticking around. Sorry we didn't get to do some reading, but I thought the review and the introduction was pretty sweet. I'll throw that up on YouTube. And tomorrow, I think we're back into... I think I'm going to take it one day philosophy, one day midwifery. So tomorrow we're going to jump back into understanding the role blame and anger plays in preventing us from being rational and mastering the dialectic the way we were talking about, and the role that blame and anger plays in maintaining our pathologos. That'll be tomorrow. Maybe today I'll see you later on, playing some music, and you can ask more questions and request some songs. But that'll be it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for the really cool little pictures that you shared. One of a cat playing drums, I think. No, he's eating popcorn. And there's a bunny having a soda. So very cute. Thank you for sharing them. And I will see you either later today. Jed Phoenix Music. I will put a link to that on the Discord for anyone who wants to find it, who is a fan of the philosophy but wants to enjoy some music. I don't know. You can find me there. And we'll see you tomorrow.